Hi, I'm going to be reading you Island of the Blue Dolphins, Chapter 5. I'm going to read several chapters tonight because I'm getting ready to paint my bathroom. It's mid-July. It's July 22nd, actually, so getting ready to paint my bathroom and my kitchen, which means I'm not going to be able to read to you for a little while. So I'm going to read a few to get them online for you. All right, Chapter 5. That night was the most terrible time in all the memory of Galastat. When the fateful day had dawned, the tribe numbered 42 men, counting those who were too old to fight. When night came and the women had carried back to the village those who had died on the beach of Coral Cove, there remained only 15. Of these, 7 were old men. There was no woman who had not lost a father or a husband, a brother or a son. The storm lasted 2 days, and the third day we buried our dead on the south headland. The Aleuts who had fallen on the beach we burned. For many days after that, the village was quiet. People went out only to gather food and came back to eat in silence. Some wished to leave and go in their canoes to the island called Santa Catalina, which lies far off to the east, but others said that there was little water on that island. In the end, a council was held, and it was decided to stay at Galastat. The council also chose a new chief to take my father's place. His name was Kimki. He was very old, but he had been a good man in his youth and a good hunter. The night he was chosen to be chief, he called everyone together, saying, "Most of those who snared fowl and found fish in the deep water and built canoes are gone. The women, who were never asked to do more than stay at home, cook food, and make clothing, must now take the place of the men and face the dangers which abound beyond the village. There will be grumbling in Galastat because of this. There will be shirkers." So a shirker is somebody that doesn't do their chores, who doesn't do what they're supposed to do. So he's basically saying, hey, most of the men have been killed. If we're going to survive as a tribe, women are going to have to step up. They're going to have to learn how to hunt. They're going to have to do the jobs that men did. And the men are grumbling because they don't want women to. They have, most Native American tribes had very clearly defined job roles. Women did not hunt. Women, they prepared food, they made baskets, they foraged for berries, or they looked for roots, or they looked for nuts, but they did not hunt. And only men did that. And men didn't do things like make baskets or look for nuts. Like their roles were very clearly defined. And so Kim Key, the new chief, is saying, hey, look, we can't follow those same rules because we won't survive as a tribe. We have to change the way our tribe is structured and the jobs that people do. And there's going to be grumbling and complaining, and there's going to be people that don't want to do the chores. Right? He's kind of giving them a talking to. There will be shirkers. These will be punished, for without the help of all must perish. Kimki portioned work for each one in the tribe, giving Ulape and me the task of gathering abalones. This shellfish grew on the rocks along the shore and was plentiful. We gathered them at low tide in baskets and carried them to the mesa, where we cut the dark red flesh from the shell and placed it on flat rocks to dry in the sun. Ramo had the task of keeping the abalones safe from the gulls, and especially the wild dogs. Dozens of our animals which had left the village when their owners had died joined the wild pack that roamed the island. You're going to see these wild dogs become a big problem. So there was already a small pack of wild dogs on the island, and then when most of the hunters got killed, some of their dogs ran away and joined the wild pack. They soon grew as fierce as the wild ones and only came back to the village to steal food. Each day toward evening, Ulape and I helped Ramo put the abalones in baskets and carry them to the village for safekeeping. During this time, other women were gathering the scarlet apples that grow on the cactus bushes and are called tunas. Fish were caught and many birds were netted. So hard did the women work that we really fared better than before when the hunting was done by the men. So they're saying that, hey, the women did a really good job as hunters and looking for food, and so they actually had more food than before when the men were hunting. What do you think that is going to do to the men in the tribe that have already suffered this devastating battle, right? And they find out that, hey, the women are really good at providers. So it's going to make the men pretty mad, right? They're going to be like angry and grumbling because women shouldn't be allowed to hunt, right? Because the women are doing a really good job. They're hunting and fishing and finding lots of food. Life in the village should have been peaceful, but it was not. The men said that the women had taken the tasks that rightfully were theirs, and now that they had become hunters, the men looked down upon them. There was much trouble over this until Kimki decreed that the work would again be divided. Henceforth, the men would hunt and the women harvest. So that is, like I said, that was a very common thing. There were very clear roles, and so that's ripping their whole tribe apart because they're making this big huge change and people can't handle it, right? And so he, as the chief, he's like, okay, hang on a second, hold it, we're going back to how it was before. Henceforth the men would hunt and the women harvest. Since there was already ample food to last through the winter, it no longer really mattered who hunted. But this was not the real reason why autumn and winter were unpeaceful in Galestat. Those who had died at Coral Cove were still with us. Everywhere we went on the island or on the sea, whether we were fishing or eating or sitting by the fires at night, they were with us. We all remembered someone, and I remembered my father, so tall and strong and kind. A few years ago my mother had died, and since then Ulape and I had tried to do the tasks she had done, Ulape even more than I, being older. Now that my father was gone, it was not easy to look after Ramo, who was always into some mischief. It was the same in the other houses of Galestat, but more than the burdens which had fallen upon us all, it was the memory of those who had gone that burdened our hearts. So think about it. Everybody's depressed. This is like PTSD, right? I mean, they've had this big, huge battle, and like, most of the men in their village, except for older men and people that are like really severely injured in the battle, most of the men are gone. So everybody's lost somebody in their family. They've had somebody die, and so they're depressed, right? Nowadays we would call a therapist and say, we need counseling on this island. People are really struggling, right? I think a student said that last year. I had some really funny students, and they were like, they need some counseling. Yeah, because they're all really depressed, right? After food had been stored in autumn and the baskets were full in every house, there was more time to think about the people we had lost, so that a sort of sickness came over the village, and people sat and did not speak, nor ever laughed. In the spring, Kimki called the tribe together. He had been thinking, he said, during the winter, and he had decided that he would take a canoe and go to the east, to a country which was there and which he had once been to when he was a boy. That country is the state of California. So he's going to get in a canoe and head eastward to California. It lay many days across the sea, but he would go there and make a place for us. He would go alone because he could not spare more of our men for the voyage, and he would return. The day that Kimki left was fair. We all went to the cove and watched him launch the big canoe. It held 2 baskets of water and enough tunas and dried abalone to last many days. We watched while Kimki paddled through the narrow opening in the rocks. Slowly he went through the kelp beds and into the sea. There he waved to us, and we waved back. The rising sun made a silver trail across the water. Along this trail he disappeared into the east. The rest of the day we talked about the journey. Here comes more of the cliffhangers, right? There's questions that the author asks. As soon as I see question marks, I know that the cliffhanger's coming. The rest of the day we talked about the journey. Would Kimki ever reach this far country about which nothing was known? Would he come back before the winter was over? Or never? Dun, dun, dun. That night we sat around the fire and talked while the wind blew and the waves crashed against the shore. And that is the end of chapter 5. Dun, dun, dun. Do you think Kimki's going to come back? Very dangerous journey, like in a small canoe going across the Pacific Ocean between the island and um, all the way to California. It's a pretty risky journey. All right, you're going to see it's a really risky journey later on in the book. Dun, dun, dun. That's a Karen cliffhanger. All right.